Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Thank you for joining me today for an honest book review from a fellow mom seeking great books for children to read. Today's book review is actually a double feature of The Wilds by Roland Smith. I'm going to begin with book one of The Wilds, and that is sort of the subtitle of that is The Amazon. And The Wilds is a series that's recommended for ages 8 to 12 and is really an engaging book for children who love animals. So if you have a student who loves animals, who loves nature, then this is a series that I would definitely encourage them to read. It kind of goes along with the Explorer Academy kind of idea, but this is just a particular family who sort of lives for conservation and taking care of animals. And their last name is the Wilds. And so you'll see the play on that throughout the story. Like I said, it's very reminiscent of the Explorer Academy, but this is really an adventurous family. Asia and Ring are the children of Jack and Jane Wild, and Jack runs a 2,000-acre animal park that is a conservation and rehabilitation for animals. And Jane is a conservation biologist who travels to remote locations to study animals and as part of the reintroduction program for the rehabilitated animals. Asia and Ring, they travel with their parents and spend time at the family's conservation park. They're essentially like a homeschooled family, which in book one is an issue that Asia is really dealing with. So as stated in the title, because we have the Amazon, this particular book is set in Brazil. The story opens with Asia and Ring trying to find the location of their mother's reintroduction of a rare type of monkey. And so they're trying to figure out where it is that she's trying to do this reintroduction because they can't find her. When they can't find her or her platform before nightfall, they do return to camp. They have their teacher with them, Professor Bob, who has been ill, and so the children have taken advantage of his illness to go explore. When they awake the next day, the other members of the camp are gone and everything is sort of mysterious. And then there's a man who appears from a local tribe. Rayoni is his name, and he's a Kayapo man, and he tells the children that it isn't safe for them in the jungle and that they should leave. However, they're going to refuse because their mother's missing and they're not going to leave without her. So the adventure really kind of builds from there. Rayoni offers to help the children track down their mother, and what they discover is that she's been kidnapped. The question is why? Her reintroduction location that she has chosen is a potential site for gold and mining, which has been taking place in the jungle. And so Rayoni and Professor Bob help the children find and rescue their mom. The story is really engaging and clean. Your reader might learn a few things about the Amazon and the unique animals that reside there. The characters also have some development beyond just finding their mom. Asia is privately struggling with a desire to go to high school and be like a normal child instead of traveling the world with her parents, especially because Ring, her brother, is her only companion. One quote from Asia's sort of notebook describing her inner thoughts, she says, "Sometimes I wish we had a normal life. I've been thinking about this more and more lately. I love my parents, and I'm pretty sure they love me most of the time. I respect the work they do for animals and conservation, but why have children? I think they had Ring, so I'd have someone to keep me company." And this storyline does come full circle without Asia saying anything to her mom. Her mom tells Asia after she's been rescued that it isn't fair, the life that they have forced them into, considering what they want. And Jane tells Asia that if she really wants to go to a normal high school, that she would support her decision and they'll do what it takes to make that happen. In the end, Asia decides not to attend a high school. She just wanted to know that it was an option if she wanted it, and her mother commits to being more present in the lives of her children. So we see that sort of dynamic in the book. Ironically, though, we don't see a lot of her in book two because she's sort of stuck. Book two really picks up where book one ends, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In this particular book, though, in the book one, the father isn't particularly present because he had stayed behind. But he does show up in the Amazon when he hasn't heard from his wife or his children. Overall, the story sets up a unique family dynamic where time is split between parents and locations at times, but the parents clearly care for one another and for their children. The fact that the father shows up to sort of save the day and the mom is sort of reflecting as well on her children's strong desire to be with their parents sets up good themes and role models for young readers. These undertones are important, and so while readers may not consciously think about it or consider it, it's important in a world that seeks to destroy the family for children to read books with strong family and adult influences, and all of which is given in this book. Rayoni and Professor Bob help give the children wisdom throughout the story as well. You may want to check out my review. I do have some things worth mentioning. There is some mentions of yoga and whatnot in the story, and so kind of see my responses to that and see if that matters for you and your family. I really enjoyed this particular book. I think tween readers would enjoy it, especially if they love animals. And I know that, like, my son tore through them. He really enjoyed them too. So I also said this was a double feature. So the second book in the series is called The Vaquita, and that is actually what drew me to this book. My son had done research on an endangered animal, and he chose the vaquita. And yeah, I mean, without him having done that, I wouldn't have necessarily known. So going into this book, I kind of knew a little bit about the vaquita. And so a lot of what Roland Smith presents in this book is really accurate to a lot of the research that had been done for my son about this particular species of animal. And so that was really kind of cool to see. And so you can tell that he did his research in these stories and the animals that he talks about. Book 3, I believe, is set to come out in the fall. So when that comes out, I will read that and preview that. I always think it's important with series that we stay with them and kind of keep following them along, because it's really easy to slip up or put things in that we had built trust with. And so you've seen that if you've been following me for a while with some of my other reviews. So the Vaquita is book 2. The parents, like I said, one's a conservationist, one's the biologist. Book 2 opens up pretty much following where book 1 ends. So the children have traveled from Brazil to the Sea of Cortez in Mexico to assist their father, who's putting together a Vaquita summit. He's trying to draw awareness to this endangered species and trying to get people locally and internationally to pay attention and to want to care to protect the species. While Asia and Ring help their father prepare for the summit, they also interact with the locals and other wild conservationists who come to town to participate in the summit. As such, they meet a young lady, Consuela, and her father, Flaco. And there is her boss is Matthias. And so Ring takes a particular liking to Consuela's father and really enjoys spending time with him, fishing expeditions. And then Asia decides to join them one particular day, and that is when they discover that 2 vaquitas have been caught in a net. They proceed to cut them out and rescue them. However, not everyone is happy with the intervention, especially with the upcoming summit, so it kind of throws things off. The tension that builds from this is what is the conflict and the crux of the story. So I don't want to give too much away, because it is a really great story for a family read aloud or for upper elementary tween readers. There's a lot of adventure, a lot of factual information. Definitely check out my review. There's some great quotes in the book. One is that, like, work is prayer. They believe that all jobs, big or small, were equally important and should be respected. That's one of their parents saying. So, like, those are good themes that you want your children, thinking about and exposed to. So far, series full of adventures seeking to bring awareness to endangered animals, and they'll enjoy the fast-paced adventure story. And so I just think that that's something really interesting. Lastly, as far as biblical tie-in for this book, you could connect to the biblical mandate in Genesis to take care of creation, to be good stewards of what God has given us. While we know that no one is good according to Romans, we can also see with readers' perceptions and perspectives, particularly with Matthias and Consuela. On page 224, you'll see some notes in my responses to kind of see about that. I think perception and perspective doesn't justify wrong actions, but it can help readers and people gain understanding and compassion when addressing such issues of concern. Matthias is sort of into some negative things in the community, but what he does do helps bring money and sustain certain families. So there's that dynamic in there to really consider and talk about. It's a great opportunity for conversations with your readers about those types of things. So I definitely enjoyed this series in book 1 and 2. I encourage you to, like I said, double check and look through my written review, see if there's anything in there that stands out to you that you may want be a caution for you and your family. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a great read.